So good morning, good afternoon, and thank you to everyone for taking the time to join today's session. HCM and ERP projects are generational undertakings for many organisations, and the solutions that they choose will be part of their business for an average of a decade. Now, it's impossible to foresee the changes that come and go over that period of time, so there has to be a focus on creating a technology platform that is responsive to ever-changing business capability needs, but also evolves with your organisation's rapid growth and your ever-evolving employee experience needs. So if you started your business today, what would your HCM back office look like, and how would you like to deliver on that all-important customer experience? My name's John Thacker, Senior Vice President of Professional Services here at Inoapps. I'm excited to be here today to host a discussion on the benefits of investing in employee experience, especially for organisations facing unique challenges like rapid growth and limited access to technology. I'm delighted to be joined on today's webinar by Karl de Bruijn at Portman Dentex and my colleague Debra Lilley here at Inoapps. Karl, hi. Great to have you on the call today with us, and just like a quick introduction to yourself.
Yeah, thanks, John. So my role at Portman Dentex is the Chief Information and Transformation Officer. And in essence, really, the information is what it says. That I look after the technology teams. And the transformation part of my role, I look after the business transformation, enterprise project management office, value creation office, parts of the business. I also sponsor diversity, equity, and inclusion across the organisation.
Perfect. Thank you, Karl. And Debra, could you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes, my name is Debra Lilley, and I'm the VP of Customer Success here at Inoapps. Prior to joining Inoapps, I ran the EMEA HCM practice for a large consultancy. So whilst I look after all of the applications, I think HCM is where my heart is, and I'm particularly interested in the employee experience, and recently wrote an article for ERP Today about treating your employees as your customers to give them the right experience.
Perfect and great. And again, just welcome both onto the call. Now, for the audience, we'll be taking questions towards the end of the call, but do feel free to type questions as you have them, and we'll be picking them up and answering them towards the end of the call. So, Karl, to start the conversation here today, could you share an overview of the Portman Dentex story to date and the compelling reasons to act in pursuit of both driving employee experience and standardising on that single platform for growth? Can you tell us a bit more about your employees?
Yes, definitely, John. So I think we refer to our employees more as colleagues, and mostly because of the environment we work in. So Portman Dentex has grown predominantly through acquisition, and within that acquisition, we have a large amount of employees coming on board into the organization, but we also have strong relationships with the dentists within those practices, and the dentists are more associates than colleagues in that model. So really what that means, we've got colleagues who need the full employee experience. We have dentists who also, or clinicians per se, who also need that full employee type experience where there's training and compliance and general engagement. But we also have a commercial relationship with our clinicians, which is more like a B2B model. So I think in essence, our associates and our colleagues need the employee functionality as well as being able to be managed as a supplier and engaged as a supplier and have that commercial relationship. So it adds a little bit of complexity, and I think that was part of the selection process, was to understand what products and capabilities we could get that would fulfill that need.
Yeah, that's great. And Debra, I mean, are they fairly typical of the opportunities you see for companies, organisations like Portman Dentex?
Yeah, so it is a complex model, but it's not anything we haven't seen before, not necessarily in one customer, but that concept of associates that still need training, that still need that experience is something that we've seen in other organisations. I think it's what makes it really interesting that every organisation is slightly different, and yet the platform can deliver for all of those. So yeah. very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say exciting times for where we are at the moment. I mean, Karl, when Portman Dentex selected both Oracle and Inoapps, your PR announcement said we selected Inoapps based on their experience, the approach, the accelerators, and importantly, the cultural fit. We're also excited, and our European group arms are also interested in joining the wider project and program. And we're also looking at how we can possibly utilize Oracle for our future requirements as well. And this is just the start of something phenomenal. Could you add some color to that statement in terms of the why? Really, it's around the why. Was it a promise of speed? Was it our understanding of the challenge, or was it something else?
Definitely, John. I think it's important to understand a bit of the context where we were on the journey. So at the time, it was Portman Healthcare and Dentex Health, two separate companies, and Portman had started on this journey, but we were in the midst of discussions about a merger and coming together as organizations. So we really needed a partner that we could work with very closely, that understood our importance on clinical freedom and patient-first practices and treating our colleagues as a core part of our business. And we found that sort of cultural fit with Inoapps. I think it was also inherent in our selection criteria to find a product that could help us implement the merger in a timely fashion. And with the Evolve methodology, we started to see actually what we can do here is we can take two organizations, and rather than just merge them together, we had a phrase 1 + 1 = 3, which was really bringing the two organizations together and leveraging Evolve and Oracle Modern Best Practice to move forward and get to an end state together. And I think that was very critical in our selection process as we were going through that. It helped us when we were in a complicated time in our organization's evolution to actually look forward and see a light at the end of the tunnel, if I can say that.
No, that's great. And Debra, I know you have your...
Yeah, for me, what I like about Evolve is it requires a commitment from the top of the organization. It requires that, Karl, it was always about, this is what our organization needs to do, and this is what we're doing, and we know that, we're in this for the long haul and whatever. And I've seen other methodologies that promise to do things quickly, but basically they're just turning on the lights, and that doesn't work. That doesn't work for an organization. So that commitment from the top is what I really like about this program, and that ability that we will be adopting modern best practice. It's all about that buying into the whole concept of it. So that's what excites me about that program.
No, absolutely. And as I say, and from what we've seen already as well is the success in and around the adoption of those things that we'll come on to later on in this conversation. So next we'll talk a little around the business scope of the program, Karl. And I understand you made some changes quite early on in the program. Why was that?
So yes, it's not quite as sinister as it sounds. It sounds almost like we went straight in and had to have a change request. It's not quite like that. We were in the midst of the merger, but we hadn't actually had sign-off from the Competition Markets Authority. So we couldn't commercially agree a project to replace platforms and implement change and implement new processes and structure into both organizations. So we had a two-phase go-live planned where we would implement into the what we'd call the legacy Portman estate and then follow on with the legacy Dentex estate. I think when we came together as two organizations and the merger was finalized, we looked at this and really it would be better off to go live together as one organization and leverage the program as an opportunity to enable the merger. So we raised that change request formally with Inoapps. And actually, anecdotally, the interesting bit to it is it actually turned out Inoapps enabled us to reduce our project budget by making this change request. So, you know, when you hear change request, you immediately think increase later, longer. It's none of those. Actually, we worked on it together to design what it would look like, and mutually beneficial, I think, in terms of simplifying the program, but also reducing our costs and our time to market.
Yeah, and I guess it's through that, the adaptability and the flexibility of the overall approach, obviously within the confines of the overall method and ways of working as well. I mean, Debra, do you see, you know, that as a typical adoption pattern?
I spend a lot of time with customers about working out their strategy and how they move. And it shouldn't be, here is a project plan that will work for everybody. It shouldn't be that. It should be what makes sense for your organization. So understanding, and we'll probably talk about it a bit later, but understanding what makes the sense for your organization at the time, because after all, IT is there to support your business, not to force you down a particular path. So this made sense for you that you were coming together. We have another customer at the moment in a similar situation. They're still operating as two different organizations, but actually the implementation is helping them to understand how they will work together as they go forward. So what makes sense for the organization is always the right thing to do.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So great insight into the overall business scope. In terms of the business capabilities and the functional scope of what's been implemented, what's covered in the first phase, Karl?
Yes, it's, I mean, loosely just product-wise, we're implementing Fusion ERP, sort of core financials, Fusion procurement, and Fusion HCM, which we're also putting in Oracle time and labor. Of course, you know, so when it comes to scope, it's a lot deeper than that, but at the top level, those are the products we're focusing on.
Yeah, and Debra, again, there's no, you know, there's right solution set for, and it's unique for every customer situation. You know,
Yeah.
just share some thoughts on that.
Yeah, when we talk to customers, it's, you know, depending on the size and the footprint of global or geographical or whatever, sometimes they want to break it down, and sometimes it's, you know, our performance cycle is from this particular date, so we're going to miss that in the first phase, so there's no point wasting time on that in the first phase, we'll do that in the second, or we want to get it in for that first performance, or, you know, there are lots of different reasons. It's not one size fits all. Whilst they may have a very similar footprint of the modules, it's how do you consume that in the right way for your organization. So here it was about, it works for all of it for all of our organization, but that's not always the case. And we will sit with customers and often challenge them when they say how this is how we want to do it. And we'll say, experience tells us that might not be the right way, or there might be a better way for you, and work that out. It's not just about what you're putting in, but how you're putting it in as well.
Yeah, and you know, and I see that as well, right? You know, it's back to the business capability needs, the foundational business capability needs that provides that, again, that foundational capability that allows you to then grow on. But it's not just around, I mean, Evolve isn't just around that fast time or accelerated time to value, but it's more than that. It's a real commitment to the strategy of continuous improvement. So just with that in mind, you know, what's the plans for next, Karl?
I think, John, I mean, firstly, that sort of time to value, I can't agree more. I think in our selection process and the discussions and conversations we had, the Evolve concept of getting the systems live and then driving continuous improvement for the business as a whole was very critical in our thinking and in our decision process. I think, you know, the biggest risk in this level of change program is getting caught up in the change program forever and ever and not having a way to move forward out of it. And then you start to talk about day 2 or day 3 scope release where it could be 6 months later, 8 months later. And I think using Evolve, what we've seen is it's more about actually building the capability within the organization to be agile and be responsive. So get the products live, get them implemented, get them live through the rapid process, and then have the capability to continually evolve. The world changes, and if you're caught up in these large programs of change for a long time, the world's very different when you come out the back end than when you started, and you need that ability to be very responsive. So we're incredibly excited about the sort of ongoing roadmap and already discussing lots of opportunities, especially around our colleagues and the opportunities for our colleagues to have access to the platforms, to their development, personal development, and being able to work through that, and other products that we can plug in fairly rapidly because we have that core foundation. And I think the most of that's enabled by not just the learning we've gained through the change program with the Evolve methodology of how we build those agile teams, but also that short, sharp, fast change gets you benefit very quickly, and you start to realize the benefit and then move on to the next one, and being very responsive minimizes the organizational fatigue. So I think it's not just about the methodology and the project. It's adopting the methodology and approach of learn and evolve as an organizational principle.
Yeah, as a way of working. I love what you said there actually as well, in terms of, you start out on the big programs of work, and about halfway through, the business have evolved, the five forces, if you like, right, have all moved on. Competition's changed, the market conditions change, regulatory, legal, fiscal compliance has evolved, and it's been able to respond to all these things in an agile and flexible way, while getting the balance in terms of getting that accelerated time to value, getting those capabilities out and being used, getting ROI based on what you've delivered to date, and then looking at that continual innovation roadmap of activity that's providing business benefit as well. And I guess, part of that as well is also soliciting feedback. So Debra, a question for you maybe as well is, the employee and employee experience becomes, really paramount in terms of supporting that continuous innovation, in terms of providing feedback into that roadmap and planned activities. I mean, what have you seen in terms of, how you drive that feedback loop in terms of inputting to the wider roadmap?
I think it's really quite important that, we started this conversation around the value for your colleagues, and we put employee experience in the name. What is important to them? So it's important, Karl, that you have the information that you need, and that you provide a development platform and all of the things that your colleagues need. But what do they need on top of that? What are the challenges that they have? Right? What are the things that that make their life difficult or could be made easier for them? And so, my advice would be, talk to them, have a forum, because especially your workforce are they're not all in one place. Right? They're in different practices all over the place, and so have a forum and ask them. What you will find is that people will naturally gravitate to, hey, I love this system, here's some ideas or whatever. People who that wasn't part of their job role, because they're interested in technology and they like the sort of things that it does. So keep talking to them and asking them. In fact, I'm doing that, Karl. My dentist is a Portman dentist, and before we even won this, I asked them what the process was like. That was my secret shop a bit. But something else that you said there, John, about being able to react. We saw that when COVID started, organisations that had already moved to Oracle Cloud were able to deal with some of the needs. New absence types, new ways of dealing with people not being there or not coming in, or how that was going to affect their job. They were able to do that very quickly because the platform allowed them to be agile. They needed to be, right? So, you know, we can see these things. We have another customer that works in public sector in Scotland, and Scotland have brought in family-friendly policies, and they've been able to do that very quickly without any issues. And then the other side of that coin is when you're buying the product from Oracle, you know, one of the promises of cloud is continuous innovation, right? Well, that continuous innovation needs to be consumed. So being able to move with the product when it's right for your organization, you don't need everything, but where it's going to add value it's so much different than that other scenario where you just switch on the lights. So where you set it up to be agile, to be able to move forward, it's very, very powerful indeed. So yeah, talk to your employees, to your colleagues, and ask them what challenges they still have, and then look at how you can deal with those.
Yeah, and that in itself is a continual evolution, right? You know, and as you go live, that's just the start in many respects, right? Because they get into grips with the systems, the new ways of working, the new processes, and that becomes the start point then for that kind of evolution in terms of the ongoing experience as well. I mean, one of the questions on the back of that, I guess, Karl, is can you give us some examples of the employee experiences that you're looking for?
I think we're a growth business and continually growing, and as I said, we acquire very acquisitive business, and part of acquisition is around onboarding colleagues into our business, and that first interaction is hugely important, I think, in terms of, you know, setting people up for success in their careers and moving forward, and having all that information, and also the fundamentals of ensuring that we do have all that visibility and people will get paid on time and all the benefits moved across, and, you know, really getting those. So for us, it's about both the experience they feel in the organization, but once they've joined the organization, then having the tools available so that they can book leave when they need to. Very simply, I think, you know, Debra mentioned we have quite a federated workforce, but we also have a lot of deskless employees. If you think of your normal dental practice, you know, people are moving around a lot and quite active, and maybe in the surgeries, and don't have access to computers or desktops or even laptops. So having that ability in their phone. So it's bringing the systems to our colleagues and making sure that they're straightforward, usable, and having the information they need at their fingertips. I think it is very important. I think I can't express enough how important it is to make it end user focused rather than back office process focused. I think we historically in organizations, we probably focused a lot on what do we need in the back office. I think we have a concept that we talk about practice first, stand in the practice and look out, what do I need? And stand in the shoes of a colleague working in practice and say, well, what do I need from my tools and capabilities and systems that are being delivered to me? And how can I use them simply and access them?
Yeah, no, so it's critical. It's critical, and Debra, both Oracle and Inoapps have, you know, we've invested time and money into that employee experience as well. Can you give us some insights, some examples, actually, in terms of how we're supporting those user experiences?
So onboarding is important to every organisation. Karl has just said how onboarding is even more important in there, because you're onboarding a practice at a time as well as individuals who come and go as normal colleagues. And you know, Oracle have put a lot of investment into their journeys functionality, which enables you to create you know, basically an onboarding journey that's relevant to your organization. It's not generic. It can be slightly different for one practice than another, if depending on location or whatever it needs to be. We've done a lot of work with Oracle to extend that. You know, that they've made a platform that enables you to go much further with the employee experience, and we've done a lot of work with Oracle to see how that can be done. I've got one example. We have a customer who people work offshore, and when they're working offshore, they get, I suppose the best way to explain it is like frequent flyer miles, which they can then change up for more holiday or something. And we've been able to use that platform to build them a little system that just adds it to the standard absences. So, you know, what was right for that organisation. And the technology that enables that is actually something, if I go back to my point about the innovation that keeps being delivered, right? So, Karl, your implementation project has been whilst Oracle have been introducing their Redwood, which is to make the user experience better for people. Specifically, one of the big benefits is around whatever device they're using. So for your practices where they haven't got a laptop, and I know that the project had been showing me the difference between, I think the example that they're using is when they're going in and purchasing the gloves that they need in the practice, right? The new Redwood allows them to do that from a phone, from a mobile phone, really easily. It's so much easier. It looks like it was built for the phone. Nobody has to go into a special app or go to another room. They can do that from wherever they are. And that's that kind of innovation that Oracle have brought in a platform that does things better for you or the employee today, but will also allow you to build on that for your organization as well. Yeah. So yeah, very exciting areas.
Yeah. So I guess the all important, well, two questions here, I guess. One is around, obviously the program through its initial phases now has progressed. Clearly there are always lessons and learnings as you go. I mean, could you give any insight, Karl, in terms of what you've learnt during the project so far, good and bad?
Yeah, definitely, John. And you know, I think just to provide some context, I'm not new to ERP and HCM implementations. I'm probably fairly new to cloud, but I've done a couple cloud first ones. But I think, you know, I've spent my career, and as with a lot of people, been involved in alongside lots of ERP and HCM implementations. So my learnings really, I think the first is more anecdotal, and it's probably a post-COVID one, about how with remote working has enabled us to have the right skill sets we need available, and with the partners we work with, and in this case with Inoapps, having access to the right people within the team. Also has the downside of it's quite transactional in the beginning. So there's a big lesson of spending some time together, getting to know each other, getting to understand the nuances of working together, the team atmosphere, having the clear vision of what people are trying to achieve, or else it can feel very transactional in the early stages. So very important to do that team engagement and get people working together in a collaborative way. The other, I think, and it's great to talk about Oracle Modern Best Practice and the Evolve methodology and how that's achievable. And we often think, oh, you know, cloud first, if I'm adopting Oracle Modern Best Practice, fairly straightforward, you know, we can manage that. I think what I learned was the value that having all the predefined templates and capabilities that came with the Evolve methodology was just fantastic. I think in the areas where we've shall I say, gone it alone or managed it internally, and lacking the pre-built templates, understandings of that, has taken us a long time. We're almost developing that brand new and through trial and error. So I think partnering is key, but also partnering with somebody who has that methodology not just mapped out as a methodology, but has the underlying collateral to make that methodology work, I think is hugely important. I think when we were back in the on-prem days, a lot of it wasn't around the templates. We were defining it and we had long design phases. And although we call the first phase of the project sort of design, a lot of it's actually training and understanding the methodologies and going through it, and then coming out with that and saying, okay, this is how it's going to work. A lot of it was understanding impacts of decisions around hierarchy and how that would work. And having that collateral available has probably ensured we've been able to very rapidly and meet the timescales we set out to meet, but also meet them with the confidence of the team.
Yeah, no, that's great. And Debra, as our VP of Customer Success, I mean, and looking into, you know, the Portman Dentex program, and what do you see?
I go back to the thing I said at the very beginning, right? If you have the buy-in from the top that you are going to adopt the modern best practice, then you can make this work. I mean, you're absolutely right, Karl. In the old days, we looked at our processes for months on end and drew long diagrams on pieces of paper that we couldn't print on, and then we said we can or we can't do that, right? Now we're saying this is what we're going to do, and it's up to you to prove that that's not going to work for your business, right? And you know, I love Oracle. My career's been in Oracle, but one of the problems is its flexibility, is the configuration flexibility that you've got, and this allows us to say this is what we're going to do, but where you vary from that, it is possible to do something. And if we go back to your example of your associates being both an employee culture but also a commercial relationship, yep, that can be handled, right? And, you know, and actually, when I'm talking to customers, the bit that I say is the bit that you should be considering more is where you're actually doing your business in there, not just the back office, but your business. And your business is that your associates have that relationship. And therefore, that is an area that's going to be slightly different than everybody else. But as I said before, we've seen that before, not necessarily in one customer, but different parts in different customers. And the flexibility is there. So yes, that rigor that says this is how we're going to do it, and that understanding of your business and understanding of, and that commitment from the top, right? I've not heard once that phrase, well, we've always done it that way. You know, yes. That commitment from the top makes that change part of the program so much better. That's where the success comes from, I think.
Yeah, perfect. And in many respects, actually, as we talk through the adoption of modern best practice from an Oracle perspective, I mean, that is really key to Evolve. It is an adopt approach, an adopt mentality, as opposed to adapting the solution, the out-of-box solution. But it's also, you know, really important to acknowledge the need for a change capability to support that transformation journey. So the question, I guess, to Karl is, you know, how has that change program been for Portman Dentex so far?
Change is always difficult, isn't it, John? And I think for me, when we approach this program, the key to drive positive change is having it based upon the right motivation for change. And often you can't tell people what their motivation is. You need to identify what's happening within the organization and why this is going to support that positive change that may be happening. Or evolution that's happening, and how this is part of the next phase of the organization. And at the time, we were I mentioned it before, talking about the merger and really going forward with the Portman Dentex merger. And within the merger, we had a mantra of 1 + 1 = 3, which very frustratingly isn't mathematically correct, but loosely translated does mean together better, or the best of both worlds. So we took that and used that and wove that into our whole conversation, and then looking at the structured approach through the Evolve methodology and the Oracle best practice, the models, we were able to talk to people about how we were adopting the best processes, and then following through and teaching people what those were within the systems. It's you know, Debra and I've talked a little bit about what old school historical programs of change like this, and we often went out and asked people what did they want, and said, but we want to keep it as the standard processes, but we hadn't told them what the standard processes were. And I think the big benefit here is using that change emphasis and then giving people something tangible that says, well, and this is how it will operate, and let's go through it. And you mentioned, Debra, you mentioned there the tell me why this won't work, and invariably it will work with a few tweaks sometimes, but it's hard to articulate why it will work when you don't have it pre-documented and have the templates and the collateral to do that. So I think the two things there, just to summarize on that, John, is really around tying it to the motivation within the organization for doing what it does, tying it to the colleagues and employees' motivation for moving forward, and then really using the collateral available to teach people and show people how the world will work and what the improvements will be.
Yeah, no, that's great. There is a question, of course, in terms of tangible benefits, but before we go to that, Debra, you know.
No, I couldn't agree more. I've got nothing more to add there. I think that's perfect. Yeah.
So let's talk about those tangible benefits. I mean, what are the benefits that you're excited about for your employee and colleague community?
Yes, I think if I can come up with two, John, I think the first really that can I say gets me excited for the teams? I think so. I think it's having the access to the modern user-friendly solutions. You know, I think as a technologist, often the role of supplying technology and platforms for end users to use is very difficult if you don't think, wow, these are pretty user-friendly, easy to use, and are going to make your life better. So I'm very excited by the ease of use and just the design of the platforms and how people will be able to use them to make their working lives better. You know, it's very important. And you get a sense of reward personally when you can achieve something like that. And from everything we've seen, I think that's probably the first most exciting. I think the second is availability of data, right time, whether that's from being a data-driven decisioning structure within the organization, or even just through to our colleagues and associates having access to data to do tasks, to do activities. So I think as you grow as an organization, the proliferation of off-system data that's used to create reports or to look up what my expense payment is on mileage or whatever it may be is often all over the place. So I think that bringing together of data and interweaving that back into the systems is a real game changer. It's a step change in terms of ease of use, data availability, and simplicity. And that excites me.
Yeah,
no, that's fantastic. Debra?
Yeah, I think very personally on this project, I think we talked a lot about the benefits to both Portman and Dentex, two big organisations that merged together, and the benefits for them. But we also talked about you know, you have lots of acquisitions. You are always having new practices join your business, And for them, you know, I've been through an acquisition. It's an unnerving time, right? And to have straight away systems that make your life easier, that give you that, you know, you said, you know, the guarantee that I'm going to be paid on time that first month, that all of those sorts of things will also not only give them a better employee experience, but give them a better experience of being acquired. So I think there's lots of benefits there as well, which are specific to your organization, because that's, you know, part of your modus operandum. I think those excite me, that it's not just on day one that people are going to get the benefits, but every time you bring new people into your organization, they're going to get the benefit of this system.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that brings us nicely onto the all-important question, Karl. So when is go live? Yeah, what are you looking forward to the most here?
John, mid-August is go live. With every major change program, the most exciting bit is finishing in the end of project party. But before we go there, I think it's going to be an implementation that Portman Dentex did together. Is probably the most exciting bit. This isn't systems from Portman or systems from Dentex or projects that were ongoing. This is something we did together as a merged organization. So I think it's very exciting, just being able to achieve that and what that'll mean to the teams who've worked very hard on some complex work to get this done together and worked as a single organization.
No, absolutely. I'd say it's such an exciting time for the organisation and in some respects, actually, you know, a catalyst as well to support that merger activity, the standardisation of processes. Debra, any kind of view on that?
Well, I'm obviously very excited by it. Normally, we like to celebrate on the first day with a cake. I'm hoping that unhealthy snacks are allowed on that day. A cake will be okay. But no, it is super exciting. One of the reasons for Evolve is that fast time to value, and it's that fast for us as well. You know, it's not a long multi-year program. It's let's get the customer getting value from this quickly. And so yeah, I'm very excited by this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yes, we can have cake.
You can have cake. Brilliant.
We can have cake. Fantastic. Brilliant. So that kind of concludes the topic of the conversation today. We've had some questions coming in from the audience. I'm just going to read them out as they've kind of come up in order. First one's actually a question for Karl. Karl, what systems did you come from?
John, I'm not sure if I should name the systems because there's so many. I think it's probably a collection of systems and tools, really. I think because we had finance platforms and Excel and from two different organizations and some automations around the edge. So it's probably a collection of systems that have been implemented when the organization was smaller, not really designed for the scale, and just grown with the organization. So I think any systems we had in place would need to be refreshed for the scale the merger would drive and moving that forward. So I think for us, it's less about what that collection was and more about actually the joined up nature, because we probably had 4 or 5 finance systems and let's say Excel and everything built together and some automation and macros and everything around the edges. So it's a mixed bag, I would say.
Fair enough.
I think an important part there, Karl, is that you as an organization have grown and exponentially with this merger with Dentex. But now, whatever size you are today, this platform will allow you to scale, will allow you, to grow. It's not going to, it'll only last till you're double this size. It will grow with you. And I think that's an exciting point as well, that, this is set up for the future as well as replacing what you've got today.
Very much so. Very much so.
Absolutely. Thank you, Karl. Question for Debra that's come in. Any advice to somebody thinking around fusion?
Whenever I'm talking to customers, potential customers, existing customers who are thinking about moving to cloud, I always want to start with, what does the organization need? What is the organization's challenge? It's not about, here's a product that I'm going to sell you and here's all the great things that it can do. It should be about, what are your challenges? I'm confident that Oracle has got an answer for them. And in fact, I love being able to take something that I haven't seen before, or a little bit over there and a little bit over here, and see that. But I always think it's about, you know, what challenges can it solve for the organization, rather than, here's a shiny new toy, come and buy this. So what is it that your organization wants to do? What are you trying to achieve? And then, you know, that's where I would start. But don't be frightened of it. What Evolve allows you to do is to get there quickly and start getting the value, and then add more to it as you go on that platform that we've talked about. So very powerful. And yeah, if you're thinking about it, you know where we are. Let's come and have a chat.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've got time for just one more question. And again, it's a question for yourself, Karl. Having lived or living the Inoapps Evolve experience, what do you consider to be the kind of key get rights in terms of preparing for that modern best practice adoption?
Yes, John, I think it's the age-old one, data. Either way, it doesn't matter. Whenever we've been through these types of projects, in the original sort of on-prem implementations through to now, start working on your data quality and mapping, and I think that was the advice we got from Inoapps right from the start, and that's put us in good stead, I think, because, you know, we're meeting the timelines on the data migrations and all the trial runs, and that's going very well. But yeah, start cleaning up the data. You know, start cleaning it up today if you think you might even be doing an RFP next year. But make sure that data's fixed. And then the second is use the methodology and approach to talk to your teams about what the future looks like. Just show them stuff and take them through those workshops and engage as many people as you can to show them the future. I think that's what that collateral's there for, and be clear about the benefits, and then be very, you know, available to the teams, because they will come for decisions, and often those decisions are fairly straightforward for all the right people in the room. So it's the same sort of, you know, for all major transformation and change programs. But I think the benefit, or within this program, the bit that's really landed well is using the collateral and the templates but basically the stuff within Evolve to be able to show the organization what the future looks like, which has stood us in really good. Perfect.
Anything to add on that question, Debra?
I love that last bit. The more you share with your team, then they are part of that excitement about the value that it's going to bring, and then they're looking forward to being part of something rather than just having it done to them. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's the thing here, right? You know, many organizations need that scalable solution that can grow and evolve with them over time, and while providing that kind of baseline best practice, modern best practice processes. Yeah, ultimately, Oracle HCM now, powered by the Inoapps Evolve approach, allows customers to start using their new systems quicker, accelerate time to value, and allows for swifter user adoption and benefits realization. Inoapps, you know, as I'm sure you're aware, you know, Inoapps is probably just one of 8 Oracle partners in the UK who are accredited to implement the HCM Now story, and one of 11 in the US. But that just forms part of the wider services that we provide as well. And when we talk around continual innovation, you know, we need to, you know, Make sure as well that it doesn't stop on day one. That innovation story continues to evolve into the managed services capability as well, and beyond. And again, just back to increasing, the retention, user retention, the employee experiences, and so on and so forth. For further information for the audience, look on our Evolve approach for Oracle HCM now and the wider Evolve solutions. Have a look on our Inoapps website, or reach out to us using info@Inoapps email address. But in the meantime, I'd like to thank Karl and Debra for taking time out of their busy schedules and for joining us today. And I'd also thank you as a listener for listening in today's session for Inoapps. And we look forward for the opportunity to help your own Oracle HCM Now modernization journey powered by Inoapps Evolve. Thank you.